Alrighty, so we are on Ecclesiastes, lesson 3, chapter 6 through 8. So it moves pretty fast. I was actually looking to see if we can cover 9 through 12 all in one lesson. I'll look at that and get back with you. But 6 through 8 was this week. Um, it was kind of hard for me to do the um, paragraph themes and the chapter themes, but I think I finally nailed it. If we find out during this that I haven't, well, I can switch them up later. I did finish up 5. So I just want to kind of go back, and I do go back and look at stuff whenever I'm making them because I'm kind of looking at how things are tracking. So, chapter 1 was Vanities of Vanities, and Solomon was talking about how all is vanity, there's nothing new under the sun. The works of men under the sun are vanity and striving after the wind. So, those are like big key repeated phrases as far as under the sun, striving after the wind. And he said, I magnified and increased in wisdom. And so I think we're seeing, I mean, we know that Solomon asked God for wisdom. Whenever God said, I'll give you whatever you want, he asked for wisdom to be able to rule the people well, and God was pleased with that. So he gave Solomon wisdom, and we have those accounts, like the two women with the two prostitutes with the baby, things like that, where we see that he did have good wisdom from God to rule the people. But Solomon, we're seeing, is kind of going with some of his own wisdom, so to speak. And I think it really came into fruition in this lesson, and especially with the cross reference with the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And I'm going to say it's the beginning of true wisdom, because you can know a lot of things, but that doesn't really mean anything unless you know the Lord. So and he said, then I hated the fruit of my labor. And we see that he tested himself with pleasure. And we see like the whole, like he enlarged his works. And he talks about wine and enlarging his works and women and slaves and all that kind of stuff. And treasures. And then he said, all my activities were vanity and striving after the wind. He said, the wise man and the fool die alike, and what does a man get in all his labor? And who can eat and have enjoyment without him? So we see that, like, he does all these things, and he sees that it's striving after the wind, and then he gets down to a truth that who can eat and have enjoyment without him? So you can have all these things, all these riches, all these material things, a good plate of food in front of you, and a drink. But it's really not enjoyable without God. If you don't have God in your life and you don't have the joy of the Lord, that 5-star meal is just pointless, honestly. A 1-star meal can be enjoyable if you have the Lord. So, he finally gets down to a truth here. And we see Solomon ping ponging back and forth on things. Like he kind of gets to a truth, but then he goes into like his own thinking. And we've talked about this before, where I think every human being kind of sees or looks at things in the world and is just like, what in the world? And that's the problem. It's the world. And we've talked about how whenever God created, it wasn't like this. And he put Adam and Eve in Eden, and Adam was to tend the garden, but they walked and they talked with God every day physically. And it was really man who messed things up. As far as, we believe Satan's word over God's word. They wanted to, they fell into the temptation of wanting to be like God, and therein lies the problem. So all the things that Solomon is seeing are not things that God lays out, it's what man laid out by trusting Satan. We were given dominion over the earth. God gave us that dominion. But whenever we trusted Satan's word over God's word, then we gave that dominion to Satan. Um, and so here we go. I mean, all the things that Solomon's seeing and all the things that he's upset about are things that man put in place, because of the fall. And I say we because there's a doctrine of free will. And we're all born of Adam. But if it wasn't Adam and Eve, it would have been somebody else. That's just, when you have free will, it's going to happen. Just like with the angels, they at one time, they had free will, and they all made a decision of whether or not to go with Satan or to stay with God. Satan led a rebellion in heaven. Satan had free will to be able to do that. So we have free will. We can either choose to believe God and obey God, or we can choose to disbelieve and disobey. So what Solomon is seeing playing out is not God's precepts, it's man's precepts. And so he's just like, I mean, really at the crux of a lot of his problems is, he became friends with the world, the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the boastful pride of life. But also he's looking at everything, human wise, and he's looking at, well, why would God allow this? And it's like, so he's, we see here where he has like these highs and these lows, where he gets back to, he gets back to God. But a lot of this writing, we have to understand, is not, that God put these things in place and things like that. It's Solomon and his musings and his mind and his getting there. And I think that, the one thing that's standing out to me is, for us to see the worldly versus the godly, the worldly thinking, versus the godly thinking. And for us to see that even somebody like Solomon was human, and he talks about this, in 6 through 8. So, and we have a time for every matter, and for every deed is there. And so last lesson we got into, that, we talked about how all works will be judged. So he has made everything appropriate in its time and has set eternity in their heart. So every man has eternity set in their heart. I mean, nowadays we do have some people who believe that, like, you're here, you die, and that's it. There's nothing else. And it's like, well, have fun with that. I wouldn't want to live thinking that. But most, even false religions have some type of eternity, involved in them, because God has set eternity in man's heart. So, for God has so worked that men should fear him. God will judge both the righteous man and the wicked man. And so, my Daniel class, and we've talked about this. So, the righteous man, well, we'll get into this in the Revelation class. The righteous man will be judged at the Bema seat of Christ, whereas our works will be passed through the fire, and our works, our human works, will be burned up. but the works that were of God will pass through the fire, and we'll be rewarded for those works. So the non-believer, however, will go to the great white throne judgment, and the book of deeds will be open, and they will be cast into the lake of fire. So and then he talks about vanity under the sun. He talks about, he starts talking about oppression, and we see that in this lesson as well. And so another thing that's going on here is we've talked about chiastic structure, where an author introduces a subject or different subjects, and then they address them like in the reverse order. So we're seeing that in this writing, but also Hebrews are very circular. So they will like introduce a subject, introduce another subject, maybe even a third subject, and then they'll come back around to the first subject. So whenever you're reading something like First John, you're just like, what in the world? I had such a hard time with it when I first went into it, because I was like, what is going on? And then once I realized what was going on, I was like, oh, okay. And then what you do is you pick up those subjects and you make a list about them. You start seeing like what the author is saying about those subjects. So now he's bringing up the subject. He's seeing oppression, and we see that in our lesson today in 6-8. He's talking about that too. And then he says, one handful of rest is better than 2 fists full of labor. So he says, for whom am I laboring? And then we got into a cord of 3 strands is not quickly torn apart. Like he brings up God again. And so we talked about who that third strand was, and it's God. And he said, a poor, wise lad is better than an old, foolish king. So he's coming to some truth there. And then in 5, he starts talking about a grievous evil under the sun, and he warns to draw near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools. So he's, he's saying rather fear God, and that there's a higher official over officials. So he brings up the subject of oppressed. He's bringing up officials. But this whole draw near and listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools, we talked about kind of like that rote prayer. Jesus talks about like instead of how was it the Gentiles or I forgot how he worded it, but just that repetitive prayer. So anyway, and then he who loves money will not be satisfied. So we talked about that scripture, the love of money is the root of all evil. It's not necessarily money. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. And you can love money rich or poor. There's people who worship money either way. So it's the love of money that's the root of all evil. And though it won't be they won't be satisfied. As he comes naked from his mother's womb, so he will return, and God keeps man occupied with the gladness of heart. So that's what we did the last time. So he brought up this subject of you come here with nothing, you leave with nothing. Jesus talks about gathering treasures in heaven rather than on earth. So here is what I have seen to be good and fitting, to eat and to drink and to enjoy oneself in all one's labor in which he toils under the sun during the few years of his life which God has given him, for this is his reward. Furthermore, as for every man to whom God has given riches and wealth, he has also empowered him to eat from them and to receive his reward and rejoice in his labor. This is the gift of God. For he will not often consider the years of his life, because God keeps him occupied with the gladness of his heart. So 6, he goes into, there is an evil which I have seen under the sun, and it is prevalent among men. A man to whom God has given riches and wealth and honor, so that his soul lacks nothing of all that he desires, yet God has not empowered him to eat from them, for a foreigner enjoys them. This is vanity and a severe affliction. If a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, however they may be, but his soul is not satisfied with good things, and he does not even have a proper burial, then I say, better the miscarriage than he. For it comes in futility and goes into obscurity, and its name is covered in obscurity. It never sees the sun, and it never knows anything. It is better off than he. Even if the other man lives 1,000 years twice and does not enjoy good things, do not all go to one place. Insight.
Well, we're seeing a little bit of a he was just kidding in chapter 5. No. Um, God gives gifts, but not dominion.
Mm.
So I guess what he's saying here is that uh um my notes are a mess. Wealth and accolades are meaningless, human effort apart from God. Where he says that, in chapter at the end of chapter 5 that God gives you all of this to enjoy. That gives you the wealth, and then he gives you this to enjoy. But then he says that um, I guess that can be taken away as well if you're not walking with God. I mean, it's confusing.
Well, I mean, God, everything flows to the hand of God. And
Yes,
so the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Um, and and he's acknowledging that. He is acknowledging that truth.
but it's
That
all the Lord. I mean, it's like I think what he's trying to say is it's all coming, whether it's a gift you get to enjoy, whether it's a gift that you don't get to enjoy, it's all through God, not man.
exactly.
What
But
I took from it. Okay.
he seems a little bitter about it.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Enjoyment is the gift, right? It's like enjoyment is the gift,
yeah.
not
Yeah.
Yes.
right.
Well, and it goes into to also he's not content because he sees he everything's unfair. That's like I was listening to Farag's sermons on this, and I was like, "Oh, this is hilarious," because he's like basically what this is boiling down to is life's unfair, um, and he talks about the song he made up for his kids. That life doesn't revolve around you, and life it isn't fair, um, and so it's he's bitter
Hmm.
and life isn't fair and God does and the things that he allowed. Okay, so let's talk about Daniel. I mean, Daniel was a righteous man that went through the judgment of a nation. Daniel understood it because he was a godly and righteous man, and he knew, probably knew it was going to happen, but it's he understood it and he walked through it even though unfair things happened to him. I mean, he got taken into captivity. He ended up serving the Babylonian kings. He was probably made a eunuch. Those are, that's an unfair thing.
It's thrown in
Um,
the stand.
you know, but he understood it. He revered God and he feared God and he wasn't bitter about it because that's meekness. Blessed are the meek. Well, what's that about? It's not the weak, it's the meek. It's accepting um, what God has deemed for your life. Look at Paul.
Mhm.
Solomon seems a little bitter right now. about things. And it's like, yes, whenever you look at it through man's eyes, well, yeah. I mean, you see it all around. Why would a loving God, da da da? It's like, oh my gosh, would you please just get some doctrine in you? Like, I get it. It doesn't look fair. Life isn't fair. Why isn't it fair? Because this is not this world. The world is not God's precepts because of sin. It's because of sin. It's not because God has made things this way. It's because sin has made things this way. And
And
God
he,
uses all of this for his plans and his purposes. It's like you said earlier. Like, I understand all this has to happen so Jesus can come.
I mean, God gives gifts, but not dominion. So it's like the control is God for the gift for the gifts that he gives. It's not man's.
Uh huh.
So it's like you read, yeah. So I guess when you go to worldly and you look at men who want to control everything, so but you can't control death. I mean, it's like you can't control all of these things that you cannot. This is God's control, and you can't, you know. So I guess Solomon's a little bitter because yeah, he's lived this crazy life with wealth and riches and everything else you can imagine, but he can't control the
Mm-mm.
outcomes of a lot of it, including death, which I think is what he's looking down the barrel of here.
Yeah, and I mean also, yeah, I mean, and so and then we see what happens with his son, but yeah, and I mean he's also just looking out at life in general and what happens with different people because some
Yep.
of these scenarios like didn't happen to him, but yeah. So this one I actually all of my paragraph themes and chapter themes are all the questions. Um, so I just put do not all go to one place. It's like, yeah, well, there's two compartments, Solomon. So all a man's labor is for his mouth, and yet the appetite is not satisfied. For what advantage does the wise man have over the fool? What advantage does the poor man knowing how to walk before the living? What the eyes see is better than what the soul desires. This too is futility and striving after the wind. Insight.
Well, I think that takes you back to 3:11, um, where you're looking at God gives us an eternal nature because why human appetite is never satisfied is because our spirit, by labor, is because our spirit is God breathed, and our spirit needs to be satisfied by eternal things and not worldly things.
Hmm.
So walking apart from God, you don't have that.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's just, and that's what people, and Solomon obviously like was trying to fill this appetite that it's like only God could fill it.
Mhm. I saw a really good there's a pastor, I think he's in Rockwall. I don't know where he is, but I think he's around Dallas area. So, so big up here. But I mean, I think he's down around Rockwall, but he was talking about, your spirit connection with God and why, and it brought me right back to Ecclesiastes, but that, people don't understand the difference because your spirit is not your body.
Hmm.
It's just two, if you look at it as two separate things, your spirit is God breathed, it is soul, it longs for eternal, it longs for the things of God because it's from God.
Hmm.
And so when you reject that or fall into the way, which we all do, but you go back to it, but when you reject it, that's when you're walking apart from God, and that's when you're not probably having the best season of your life.
Right.
So it brought me back to Ecclesiastes, kind of what Solomon's going through in his cycles of writings here.
Yeah. Yeah. Very. Yeah. He's having, yeah. He's Yeah.
On the ups and downs. He's kind of having a
Hmm. Yep. Very up and down, and he like gets to a truth, and then, but this is the chiastic structure. So he's just kind of taking you on this ride, and it's kind of, it's. I mean, um, he gets to the truth as far as God, but he's like taking you on a ride through this chiastic structure of this back and forth, and you really get, and it's a very human experience because what do we do? It's just, we do this ping ponging. And so, I mean, that's kind of what this looks like with this chiastic structure is ping ponging, but it's exactly what we do, until we get to this final, like, peaceful, and he'll get there. We'll get there at the end, but this final peaceful point of God. Like, he
I
gets
think
there.
it's something we all do kind of, in our beginning of our walk. And there's sometimes we go through seasons of doubt or questioning. It's kind of, something we all do. So it was kind of interesting to read his thought process. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
Maybe
mean,
not quite as dramatic, but different. You know how it is. We all have moments of going, okay. But the thing is to get right back to scripture so you can work through it.
right. Yeah, exactly. So I just put what advantage does the wise man have over the fool? Um, and then whatever exists has already been named, and it is known what man is, for he cannot dispute with him who is stronger than he is. For there are many words which increase futility. What then is the advantage to a man? Or who knows what is good for a man during his lifetime, during the few years of his futile life? He will spend them like a shadow, for who can tell a man what will be after him under the sun? Oh, I might should have made that the paragraph theme. That would have probably been a better one. So see, that's what sometimes you get. You do your homework and you come into class and you're like, oh, that one would be better. Um,
Yeah, I
and
did. What will be after him under the sun? That's what I thought.
yeah, yeah, I think that one would be better than what I did. And Katie actually just did that and on Monday. She was like, I'm gonna go back and correct that. So yeah, these are kind of, they're not set in stone. You can change them. But so insight.
I mean, I think he's definitely saying God's sovereignty is complete control. I mean, I think he's saying man is man, but God is God, so he cannot dispute with him stronger than he is.
Yes. Um,
He's becoming more aware that he's not going to win this fight. You know what I mean? That God's got this. I think I think the light bulb's coming on here.
yeah. So this is, I mean, yeah, this is kind of a good like, um, he's still like, it's kind of down in the dumper type talk, but also like, yeah, there's a little truth trickling through. I'm gonna take this verse 11. Um, for there are many words which increase futility. I like that. 11a. I'm going to take that out. I'm going to clip that and put that up somewhere. And I'm just going to like tape that to Tucker Carlson. So
Yeah,
I said that online. I'm going to get anyway. Um,
we'll scrub
so
it.
yeah. But yes, it's definitely like, and we see a lot of questions in this one. So that's why I pulled out questions for my
Mhm.
paragraph themes and my chapter themes. So who can tell a man what will be after him under the sun? It's like,
I mean,
oh,
death. I mean, uncertainty, darkness. I mean, but again, so I kind of did a deep dive on this because I'm like, because I guess it's when you go back to the Old Testament, you have to remember this is pre-Jesus. It's like you have to go back to this is pre-salvation, this is pre-Jesus. And so it took me a second to go, because I too was like going, man, he's really going through one right here. And but life is vain and a shadow. And so the uncertainty of death would I think be a little, more uh traumatic then than it is now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but they also had, I mean, the Abrahamic covenant was a covenant of salvation. And so they knew like all those Old Testament, like even David, and David saw, he saw Christ. I mean, that was a theophany whenever
True.
the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, this is where you're going to build the temple.
And that's what
Um,
that would be for me. I mean, you give me one shot of Christ, and I can promise you, I will never, I mean, there would be ever, ever, ever any, question after that. But yeah, so, but
well,
they
no,
still seem to dip and, wax and wane even after like Solomon spoke with God twice, right?
yes.
So
And
it's still a wax and wane, but I don't know,
yeah. And honestly, but I mean, the Israelites as a nation, it's like there is a whole thing. I
the
mean,
whole
Mount
thing.
Sinai, the 70 elders had a feast with God. I mean, like they went through the Red Sea. I mean, all kinds of stuff, and like still, and
Still,
yeah, and I mean, I just think it's very human, um,
yes, yeah.
to
Even though I feel a lot, I mean, I feel that, I mean, the sacrifice of Jesus, I think, makes salvation a little easier for us. I think back then it may still have been a little, I don't know. I don't,
waiting for
it's just
but
hard. It's hard to put yourself back in that time.
yeah, I mean, but it's the same for us now with the rapture. Like we're waiting for it, but I think people get like skewed, because I don't know, they have all theories and stuff like that, and it's like, well, but if it happened the same way the first coming happened the same way he said it was going to happen, then the second
It's
coming,
all there. It's
yeah,
all everything in the Old Testament happened just as they said it would be. So why would you question it? I guess is what
yeah.
you're trying to say, right?
Yeah, I mean the thing with Solomon though is he didn't have like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Daniel yet. Those prophets were raised up um, to kings after, but they were warning about they're about to go into captivity, and then we get some end time stuff too. But I mean, he did have was it uh, well Nathan and Gad, well Samuel, Nathan, and Gad all were David. And I can't remember did Solomon have Gad?
There was one right in the beginning, and I can't remember who
Yeah.
it was. I mean, maybe God's like, I gave you wisdom. You don't
Mm.
need a prophet.
Yeah. Mm.
I don't
Um,
know.
but yeah, well, and I mean, he does know that he has Deuteronomy too,
Yes,
so
he
it's
does.
yeah. But anyway, okay,
Interesting
so
stuff, though. Yeah.
yeah, so before we hit seven, this is like the halftime. I called it halftime, but this is like the exact middle of the poem. And I think I mentioned it whenever we did our kind of our overview that like math, like somebody did the math, and but this is like the exact middle mathematically in the poem is at the end of verse 12. And it kind of goes along like they were like, this is just absolutely amazing that this is like so succinct and so precise, and the chiastic structure and all that kind of stuff. They were just talking about how this is just an amazing writing, an amazing piece, just because of that. Um, so yeah, I thought I was like, wow, definitely you have to have some type of supernatural to be able to do that. And all scripture is God breathed. I mean, the fact Solomon definitely had his problems, but I mean, he has three writings in the canon. So, um,
Good one.
7.
I mean, Proverbs is
Yes.
amazing.
And Proverbs, if now studying, looking at Solomon's life, studying Ecclesiastes, and how he gets to that point of truth, and then you see the Proverbs and the things that he warns about. And so you can look at Proverbs a little differently now after studying this, because some Proverbs are kind of like, huh? But it's more like, um, kind of like it's just the truth. This is how it is. But then there's a lot of wisdom in there that Solomon learned through
Mhm.
his, doing the wrong thing and then, seeing what the right thing is. And this, I mean, she had us go through Proverbs 5, and 6, and we saw that. Um, so, uh, let's see. A good name is better than a good ointment, and the day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting, because that is the end of every man, and the living takes it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for when a face is sad, a heart may be happy. The mind of the wise is in the house of mourning, while the mind of fools is in the house of pleasure. It is better to listen to the rebuke of a wise man than for one to listen to the song of fools. For as the crackling of thorn bushes under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. And this too is futility. For oppression makes a wise man mad, and a bribe corrupts the heart. The end of a matter is better than its beginning. Patience of the spirit is better than haughtiness of spirit. Do not be eager in your heart to be angry, for anger resides in the bosom of fools. Do not say, uh, why is that the former days were better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask about this. Wisdom, along with an inheritance, is good, and an advantage to those who see the sun. For wisdom is protection, just as money is protection, but the advantage of knowledge is that wisdom preserves the lives of the possessors. Consider the work of God, for who is able to straighten what he has bent? In the day of prosperity be happy, but in the day of adversity consider. God has made the one as well as the other, so that man will not discover anything that will be after him. Insight.
Consider the work of God. I mean, it's like he shifts here to how to live wisely
Yes.
versus, you know, kind of the woe is me. So, it's I mean, we're getting better. Um,
Yes.
better. There's a lot of betters. Um, find wisdom in adversity. So I feel like a lot of my notes are on he's saying that you find wisdom, you find wisdom. Yeah, you have your good times, but you seem that God can use the good times or the adversity that you suffer to find wisdom or to show you wisdom or to, I mean, you always hear the saying, you grow more when you're in your time of suffering or whatever. And I think that's kind of what he's saying here,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is a true statement. I mean, and then the funny thing is, says, do not, when you talk about the former days, we were just talking about Israel, that came to me as they were coming out, into the wilderness and how they kept complaining and moaning and groaning about how what they had to eat, how good it was back in Egypt. And so I don't know why that popped in my brain when, um, quit saying your former days were better because, you know,
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean now he's getting to like, okay, now. And I mean, there's also the subject of, and he's not saying to just go around and be morose and mourn and stuff like that. We're to have we have the joy of the Lord, that no matter what we're walking through, we have joy. What he's talking about is like, for some reason, the word superfluous comes to mind, and but foolishness, foolish joy.
Yeah.
Like you partake of something of the world and that makes you happy for a second, and then you need more of it because it just you're never satisfied. But it's the foolish joy, or the foolish joy or laughter and stuff like that that he's talking about. So it's better that you're not partaking in that, that you're mourning or sad or whatever, so to speak. That you're not doing that. But we have the joy of the Lord.
Hmm.
The fear of the Lord is the beginning of the wisdom, and we have the joy of the Lord, so we can be happy in every circumstance. So, like Paul, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, is not to win the football game. Is
Yes.
he's happy, he's content in all circumstances. He
Mhm.
can get through those circumstances because of the Lord, and that's true happiness.
I looked at consider, kind of did a dive on that word, to carefully observe, to stay, understand,
Mhm.
reflect deeply, I think is where. So it's like, really, really focus and reflect on the work of God, in all things, joy and sorrow, and then live wisely in a world that's unfair, or however he was, viewing it.
Yeah.
So
Mhm. Exactly. Um, yes. I chose God has made the one as well as the other so that men will not discover anything that will be after him. Um, I don't know if that was the right one. I really had trouble with this. I felt like there was a lot. 14 verses is a lot for me to pick out a chapter.
that's the one I highlighted too. God has made the one as well as the other.
Yeah. Um,
Circled considered the work of God, but then I liked that one for my chapter theme. So
yeah. Um, So I have seen everything during my lifetime of futility. There is a righteous man who perishes in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man who prolongs his life in his wickedness. Um, do not be excessively righteous, and do not be overly wise. Why should you ruin yourself? Do not be excessively wicked, and do not be a fool. Why should you die before your time? It is good that you grasp one thing and also not let go of the other, for the one who fears God comes forth with both of them.
that's what I put as my chapter theme.
The one who fears God comes forth with wisdom and
Oh
righteousness.
yeah, yeah.
Yep, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the crux of what he's saying. And I mean, it's true. Um, so yeah, we see there's a Psalm 110 or 111:10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all those who do his commandments. His praise endures forever. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. That was from Hebrews. Um, So then, wisdom strengthens a wise man more than 10 rulers who are in a city. Indeed, there is not a righteous man on earth who continually does good and who never sins. Also, do not take seriously all the words which are spoken, so that you will not hear your servant cursing you. For you also have realized that you likewise have many times cursed others. Insights.
Don't be holier than thou.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's now it's this point of humility and truth.
Yeah,
I mean, First John tells us, like, if you say that you're without sin, you're a liar. You
cast a
lie.
fit. So
You lie against the truth. And then yeah, that whole like don't be holier than thou. Take the log out of your own eye before you take the speck out of your neck. Like that whole thing. And it's not that we're not to have judgment. It's just that we're not supposed to put ourselves above another. It's like you've done the same thing that, the other person has done. So, and I also also do not take seriously all the words which are spoken. Like, don't don't take them to heart. Because
Kind of
there's a
goes
lot of, yeah.
kind of goes to emotion too. It's like, and then where he talked about getting angry, you
Uh-huh.
know, be
Mm,
slow to anger. I mean, but it says that, and but yeah,
yes.
this kind of goes back to don't take it seriously. Yeah, it's like
Well, yeah, I mean, we're kind of getting some between the pity party lines and the we're getting some wisdom, like be slow to anger. Um,
how to live wisely.
exactly. Like, whatever somebody says in sin, don't take it to heart.
Mm.
Don't take it to heart because, whatever that, you know, um, but also, yeah. So we're it's like, oh, we're getting some proverbs in here. In Ecclesiastes. So I just have there is not a righteous man on earth who continually does good and never sins. True statement.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had too.
Mm-hmm. And then yeah, that anger, the one about anger, that could be another good like little. We're getting some proverbs. So I tested all this with wisdom, and I said, I will be wise. But it was far from me. What has been is remote and exceedingly mysterious. Who can discover it? I directed my mind to know, to investigate, and to seek wisdom and an explanation, and to know the evil of folly and the foolishness of madness. And I discovered more bitter than death that women's whose heart is snares and nets, whose hands are chains. One who is pleasing to God will escape from her, but the sinner will be captured by her. Woo boy.
Back to investigating. He's, in other words, he's back to a reflection on his own life, I think.
Yes.
Um, I kind of did not really a deep dive, but kind of the death, going with the women whose heart is, you could compare that to temptation, that entangles you or that leads to sin. I think that was a good comparison for him because he lived it.
Yes.
So, it, it, it's a good, I mean, definitely it's a good wise thought, a good wise a proverb. It's back. This is back to, yeah, you definitely need to avoid these things.
Yes, and that's why she brought in those
Yes.
Proverbs 5 and things like that because he lived that and God told them not to marry the women, like just to marry within Israel, not to marry the foreign women, but what did Solomon do?
And David told him too.
Yeah, 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 because David. Well, David did. Oh gosh. Anyway,
I think he
um,
was trying to say, learn by my example.
exactly. But David didn't falter.
No, it's, I think it's, yeah, David's heart stayed, Solomon's
Mm-hmm.
heart go astray. I feel David's heart stayed very God-centered as to where Solomon allowed these women to coerce him to do things that he knew were so, so opposite of what God, wanted him to do. So it was different. I feel like it was different. I mean, the same but different.
Yeah, no, he was. I mean, Solomon is definitely the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the boastful pride of life. Like he went bonkers with everything, like just bonkers with
Wow.
everything.
He went way over the
Yeah, And yeah, exactly. I mean, just like way over the threshold. I mean, yeah, David had a lot of wives, but Solomon had like I don't know. I haven't done the math as far as how many more times times over,
1,000.
but
With
it's like
600, 700 wives and 300 concubines.
yeah, he just went like "Choo." um and so definitely he's speaking to his own experience, and so I directed my mind to know the evil of folly, because that's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
um I mean, it's like, well, you found that one out. But so, and he said, "Behold, I have discovered this," says the preacher, "adding one thing to another to find an explanation, which I am still seeking but have not found. I have found one man among 1,000, but have not found a woman among all of these. Behold, I have found only this, that God made men upright, but they have sought out many devices." Um, Downside.
Very interesting. Kind of what you had said earlier, it's God goes back, this goes back to Genesis. Or it echoes Genesis. So when you go back to man, God made man upright. So if you kind of look at upright, it kind of equals morally right.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when you go to devices, you're looking at schemes and plans and things that that are man-made, to lead you astray. So it's totally like God did not make you this way. This was the fault. This is the fallen world. This is man, because God made man to be upright, but men's devices have led them
Yes.
totally cuckoo. So, and I think Solomon, is wise of Solomon, to see this. And
Mm-hmm.
well, I think he's again reflecting. So,
And he's a little bitter.
yeah,
Yes,
and I
he's
think he's
bitter.
look. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, he's bitter against women.
100%. And
Mm-hmm.
then in some ways, I think it's kind of he sees it as humanity too.
Yeah.
So I think he's kind of yeah, seeing both ends of it.
Yeah, and he's bitter against women, but he brought it on his own self.
Yeah, he totally did. And looking at all the different, because I kind of went down a path, I think it was last week, where I was like going, how does how how does 600 wives happen? I'm just curious. I mean, in a lifetime, how? And just just I mean, there weren't as many people back then, right? I mean, it's like how did
It
it
was
happen?
it's very people.
So, but I mean, when I kind of went down and looked at different commentaries, but they were talking about how people sought him out so much, because I guess this is where his pride kind of came into effect too, that he was like fame, he was such a fame that people would give him their daughters or give him their, for political gains, kings and queens. So I'm like, I think he just, and so what's interesting is he said he's found one man among 1,000s, because so I think a lot of the people he surrounded him with, as in the political world today, probably betrayed him as well, or he couldn't trust as well. So he had probably men betraying him, which AKA humanity, and then he had the women that, of course, they're given to him as a gift, and they're, either they're being told to betray him or they're just over it. I don't know. But you know what I mean? It's just so interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, what he's talking about is he's found a godly man. Like, like you said, I mean, he's surrounded, like, basically what he's saying is, like, I've been surrounded with ungodly people except for, like, one, and he doesn't name who he is.
Yeah.
But, a woman I have not found. It's like, well, yeah, because you married a lot of foreign wives. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like,
They were
yeah,
not ready for love.
and it's like, so Ginger Marianne came to my mind, like, so how like they say that men want to date Ginger, but they want to marry Marianne. But
Yes, yes, yes.
if you marry Ginger, like, you can't expect her to be Marianne.
No.
Like, so that's what's going on here. And so for anybody younger than us, that you have to go watch Gilligan's Island. But anyway, yeah. But it's like he brought this on himself. It's like,
Yeah.
but he's bitter against the people that And it's like, well, why don't instead of being bitter, why don't you just lead them to Christ? But it
Right. Why don't
it's
you say no when they want to build an idol?
right, but also you go to the Proverbs and he's speaking from his own experience of as far as like these women were, I mean, he was so sought after that women were probably throwing themselves at him too, you know? And it's like, I mean,
Well,
there's a
I
thing because like the wives were probably also like political alliances, like you said, but then the concubines, that's a whole different thing.
whole different thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I sit there and I think of like lobbyists today. I'm trying to think of something to equate it to today. And I look at lobbyist or whatever. So if King Joe is going to give you his prettiest girl out of his harem to be your wife, there's going to be some kind of political something you're going to give back. Or she's going to come in with some kind of, hey, we need to corrupt this kingdom so that King Joe can, you know what I mean? There's always going to be an angle.
Yeah.
And that's why I think he's like ungodly people. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and then I mean, but you know, he built those temples to those idols for his wives, and so it's like, well, it just wasn't his wife going there. I mean, it was other people, and I mean, it's
That's
just
what I
yeah,
that's what I'm thinking is that they went in there to, I don't know.
yeah,
He did bring it on himself. He turned away. He didn't, the whole speech that David gave him, when David was telling him this is what you have to do, he did not. He did
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, he just
not. Yeah,
went off the
dude.
thing. I mean, it got to his head, and it was he was
Yeah.
filling a hole that only God could fill because it was just like more and more and more and excess and excess and excess and it's like he did it with everything. He built all this stuff. He accumulated all this wealth. He accumulated, um, you know, uh, I mean, things and people and wives and concubines and there's a reason why God says like to not to, and it's because you become entrapped and ensnared, and it rules you.
hmm That's where he was. I mean, and plus the pride of the fame. Uh,
Yes.
yeah.
I mean, people speculate on whether or not the Queen of Sheba and Solomon, but I mean, the fact that Jesus says that the Queen of Sheba will rise up to judge at the end of the age, I just can't go there with the whole Queen of Sheba's Solomon rumor slash theory. But yeah, I mean, he was very. But what's interesting is that she that I need to go look that up, but it's like she did seek him out, but it seems like she got the truth of God from him because Jesus says that she will rise up to judge at the end of the age. So I need to go look at all that. But
Yeah, there's probably an interesting path there. You're right.
yeah, um, that's kind of a little rabbit hole to go look at.
Yeah, it is. That'd be a good one.
Yeah, but I just can't go with. It's like if it's not in scripture, just be quiet.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah. Um, so yeah, you had the Proverbs, and then so chapter 8. Um, ooh, did I do the chapter theme? I feel like I have. I don't know. I said, consider the work of God, for who is able to straighten what he has bent.
Mhm.
That's the one I picked. This was a harder chapter for me as far as the paragraph and chapter themes. I'll be honest. So, who is like the wise man and who knows the interpretation of a matter? A man's wisdom illumines him and causes his stern face to beam. Um, so, I just chose a man's wisdom illumines him.
Yeah.
Um, but what kind of wisdom?
Um, who knows the interpretation of a matter?
What kind of
Because
wisdom illumines a man?
yeah, it has to be God's wisdom.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's
Yeah.
going to illuminate you, it's God's. Yeah.
So, and in fact, my mind went to Daniel. Whenever it says that the wise will shine forth, or the righteous will, yeah, my mind went there. So I say, keep the command of the king because of the oath before God. Do not be in a hurry to leave him. Do not join in an evil matter, for he will do whatever he pleases. Since the word of the king is authoritative, who will say to him, what are you doing? Insight.
Um, I think he's just saying that authority exists under God's rule.
Mm-hmm.
I have that in my notes for some reason.
Yeah.
Authority of who will say to him, "What are you doing?" Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we study that in Daniel, that all kings are put in place by God, even the evil ones. Um,
Hmm.
and so, for his plans and his purposes, we're just walking down this timeline. But he says, keep the command of the king. So we see in, is it Romans? About how he talks about to respect authority and,
Hmm.
um, I also was like, well, this might be a little selfish because Solomon was king. But
I know, I kind of thought that too.
yeah, but yeah, I mean,
And
it's also good advice because it's like, well, I mean, you're
it's
not really
just
going to get past it.
no.
So it's, keep the command of the king. And if the command of the king goes against God's word, you know what to do. You're still keeping the command of the king. If the king says, you need to bow down and worship the statue or else I'm going to cut your head off, then you get your head cut off, but you're still keeping the command.
Right.
So it's like, okay, fine. Um, but who he who keeps a royal command experiences no trouble, for a wise heart knows the proper time and procedure. For there is a proper time and procedure for every delight, though a man's trouble is heavy upon him. If no one knows what will happen, who can tell him when it will happen? No man has authority to restrain the wind with the wind, or authority over the day of death. There is no discharge in the time of war, and evil will not deliver those who practice it. All this I have seen and applied my mind to every deed that has been done under the sun, wherein a man has exercised authority over another man to his hurt.
So I honestly did not put my notes on 8, but I can tell you from this, it's just like God sets the appointments, right?
Hmm.
And so it doesn't matter, the proper time and procedure. It's like it's all in God's time. It's kind of what I'm reading. No man has the authority to restrain the wind or the wind. It's God. The day over death is God. So
Yes. And a wise heart knows the proper time and procedure. So a
mhm.
wise heart knows wisdom from God, like just knows how to deal with stuff.
That goes back to what you just said about bow down and worship or get your head cut off.
And then also he kind of starts going into a little of the oppression, um, as far as, under the sun, wherein a man has exercised authority over another man to his hurt.
Yeah.
And so that kind of is like, I mean, it's interesting that he brings this up. Keep the command of the king. A wise heart knows the proper time and procedure, and that he ends with this: a man has exercised authority over another man to his hurt. Um, and so then I have seen the wicked buried, those who used to go in and out from the holy place, and they are soon forgotten in the city where they did thus. This too is futility, because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed quickly. Therefore, the hearts of the sons of men among them are given fully to do evil. Although a sinner does evil 100 times a day and may lengthen his life, still I know that it will be well for those who fear God, who fear him openly. But it will not be well for the evil man, and he will not lengthen his days like a shadow, because he does not fear God. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of back to injustice and, the people who do evil seem to not get punished, kind of that thought, but then he turns it back around to that God will take care of it
Yeah,
in
exactly.
God's hands. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm going to change my paragraph theme though. So I'm going to pull out some words from this one.
Hmm.
I think it fits better. So yeah, I don't know what I was thinking with that. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's totally like, got, yeah, it's all gonna, it goes back to that theme of everybody's gonna get judged. God is a judge. It's all gonna get taken care of at the end. Um,
Hmm.
so so there is futility which is done on the earth, that there are righteous men to whom it happens according to the deeds of the wicked. On the other hand, there are evil men to whom it happens according to the deeds of the righteous. I say that this too is futility. So I commended pleasure, for there is nothing good for a man under the sun except to eat and drink and to be merry, and this will stand by him in his toils throughout the days of his life which God has given him under the sun. Oh boy.
I had a train go by, so I had to mute the whistle.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes they get a little happy with that whistle.
Oh boy. So Solomon is, well, um,
I mean, I don't know. He just keeps going back and forth.
yeah, this is the whole like the looping. I call it the looping with the Hebrew thinking, and yeah, he's just kind of he goes back and forth between worldly and godly. Like he's talking about the injustices,
Hmm.
and then like kind of like talking about what he did in the past, as far as like he saw these injustices and this is what he did, as far as like so I commended pleasure. So we know that because Solomon's writing this and because he's bringing in these truths, we know that he's also talking about when he saw these this unfairness, these injustices and things like that, then like what he did because of that. Because he's like, well, none of this makes sense. So I'm just gonna go bonkers and eat and drink and have all these wives and concubines and all this wealth and whatever that didn't really fill that hole he was trying to fill. Um,
It's funny how when he talks about pleasure in the previous chapter, it's like how he kind of explains it as it was his experiment.
yeah,
You know what I mean? He's like, when I investigated, and I'm like, okay,
yeah, mm,
to see if,
yeah,
if that was, but I mean, the point he's trying to make is that that didn't work. I mean, yeah, I tried
yeah,
pleasure, and it still didn't satisfy what I wanted. So, but it's funny kind of the way he words it, like, you're like
yes,
going, call it what you will,
yeah.
but
He's very yes, um, yes, he's very poetic. But
yeah, yes, a good word.
so
And then
then,
the
uh,
other is kind of funny how it's like it's like I hear this all the time from people. It's like, how do they always get away with it? How is it always that, they don't get punished, when they're doing these bad things and but he does end with, the one who does not fear God, it'll get taken care of. But it's just funny kind of how even in modern day you still hear that.
exactly. And that's what I think is it Psalm 37? I can't remember what the number of the psalm is. I think it's Asaph. He's just like beside himself with this that it's like, these evil people do all of this and they prosper and then, you have a righteous man over here that's just like, not. And he was just like laid out with it all and just really upset. And then he gets down to like, it's all going to get sorted out in the end and then he's fine.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. That's kind of what I got from this too. He kind of goes through moments of blips of that, and then he kind of comes back.
Yeah. I mean, we're just human and we just want to see it happen in our lifetime. We want to see them get theirs, you know.
Exactly.
But I really think that whenever it's actually happening, I don't think we're going to like it too much. Like, I think we're
Mm,
going to wish that they would have made um, a different decision. You know, like if we actually see that person get thrown into the lake of fire,
mm-mm.
I think we're just going to have a different
I
feeling
well,
about
I know we are because I know it says that Jesus is going to wipe away our tears, and I feel like that's going to be our tears is the heartbreak of knowing
it.
the loss
Right.
of so many people.
Yeah, because I mean, whenever we're raptured or we die and resurrect or whatever, um, you know, we're going to be out of the flesh and we're going to see things so much different, um, you know, than, you know, wanting
Mhm.
revenge or whatever.
Agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So, when I gave my heart to know wisdom and to seek the task which has been done on the earth, even though one should never sleep day or night, I saw every work of God. I concluded that man cannot discover the work which has been done under the sun, even though man should seek laboriously, he will not discover. And though the wise man should say, I know, he cannot discover. And then she gave you all of these verses. Whoo.
I did not look up my verse. I still have to do that. I was dog sitting,
Yeah. Um,
but I can tell you if they're coming from Isaiah, they're good ones.
yeah. So, do you not know, have you not heard the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, does not become weary or tired. His understanding is inscrutable.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, all of these verses, yes. Ooh, Deuteronomy. See now that I am He, there is no God besides me. It is I who put to death and give life. I have wounded, and it is I who heal, and there is no one who can deliver from my hand.
Mhm.
Whew. Um,
Boom.
oh. For who has known the mind of the Lord, and who became His counselor, or who has first given to Him that it might be paid back to Him again? Um, so yeah, it's His ways are above our ways. He is God. We are not, thankfully. Who has the mind of the Lord that He will instruct him? That was in Corinthians. And those are all quoting the Old Testament. So I just put, though the wise men should say, I know, he cannot discover.
I mean, our his understanding is not our understanding. So, it's faith and obedience and trust. I mean, you just have to know that
Mm-hmm.
same answer to why does somebody get away and prosper when they're doing evil things? You just have to trust.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
and I think walking through sanctification, the more you know, the more you get into scripture, the more you know your Bible, the closer you go to God, the lesser the feelings of revenge go away, which is so nice. I mean, you get to where you just pray for that person, um, instead of, wanting to throat punch them. Don't, I mean, well, there are seconds when you kind of go through a throat punch moment, but then you come back to reality really quick and you just pray for them because you're like, I just want them to, figure
Yeah.
this out and be okay.
Yeah, and I mean it's very, I mean, yes, people do stuff that you're just like, "Oh my gosh." And you just wish you could set them, shake them and just set them right.
Mhm.
And yeah, but whenever you get to like the reason why they're acting like that is because they don't have God.
Yeah,
Just like,
I
okay,
know.
it's like this is a whole, and it's like their life would be so much easier because it's the same thing. It's like, and I see it on small levels. It's like you're never gonna find what you're seeking. with
Yeah.
that worldview. You are never, like, no job is going to satisfy you. No, nothing is going to satisfy you. No, this, like, you will not be satisfied whatsoever until you have the Lord. Um, so, yeah. Um,
Because as it says, when you switch from worldly to eternal, I mean, when you make that flip, it's just a whole different
exactly.
ball game. So
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it really, really is. And you just get to, yeah, um, that all the worldly doesn't matter.
no, at that point, you just have to maintain the drift. Just
Hmm.
keep yourself in the word and stay away from the drift and keep moving forward. So,
Right.
and that's not easy with what's going on in the world today for sure. So,
No. And I mean, I would encourage, younger women, especially starting families. I know that whenever I chose to stay at home, be a stay at home mom, I was looked down upon.
100%.
And, because I didn't have a career and I was just a stay at home mom. But I knew what I was doing. And, then go be a homeschool mom and then you're really weird. But it's
Yeah.
like, I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I knew what I was doing was more powerful than the corporate ladder or what anybody else was doing as far
Mhm.
as, choosing a career or stuff like that. I was, you know, uh, I just wanted my son to be saved. That's all I cared about.
Protecting
That,
it
that-
exactly.
exactly. And so I knew what I was doing, that's more precious than anything that I could have done outside of that.
I
So, I mean,
100% agree.
right. So the world wants women to look at, oh well, you have your career and this and that, and it's like, okay, but is that really fulfilling? Because now we're just whining all over the internet about how tough it is. It's like, I know I made the right choice and I'm happy and fulfilled. So I think that, you know, whenever you choose things of God, the things of the world just slip away and pass away.
Fall apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um,
It's not an easy path. It is not an easy path. So it does take conviction and to stand tough in it or stand firm in it for sure. Because and that's kind of where Solomon goes back to. You know, you can't listen to what other people say. You have to take the emotion out of it. Don't worry about what's coming out of other people's mouths. You stand firm in what you know is true and correct.
exactly.
He definitely makes that point.
Hmm. Yeah. Let's stand firm. Let's stand.
Mhm.
Um, so, we got 6 through 8 down. Some parts were a little rough. Hmm. um, so we have 9, 10, 11, and 12. I don't know if we can do that all in one sitting or if we still need to break it up between 9 through 10. What do you think? Or 9, 10, and then 11 and 12.
What did you, so okay, when does Romans start?
August 12th. So it's coming up here pretty quick.
So if we did, let's see, so the 29th would be next week, and we could finish, so you're saying finish on
Yeah.
the 29th and then have a break until, let's see.
I think we can do it. 9 is pretty short. All of
And
them are
then,
like 8. Oh, yeah. We can do it. Let's do it
yeah,
all in one sitting.
Yeah, and then you can take a break on the 12th and then start Romans on the 19th, right?
No, we start on the 12th.
Oh, I mean take a break on the 5th, start Romans on the 12th. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, let's do it because I think if we do 9 and 10 standalone, I think we're just gonna be, yeah, because it's so short. So that's why she put all that together.